Okay, welcome back again to the Are You Strong show. Awesome guest coming on today. Another, I hate to say the word former, but we all end up as a former. Big Ten quarterback, from Michigan State. Before I say his name, I'm gonna talk about some of his athletic accolades while at Penn State. Now, these things that I've looked up and found, they may have changed because they change by the week depending on what's going on in the world, right, of sports. But currently ranks 10th in Michigan State's career passing yards with 5,463. Ranks 6th in Michigan State's career passing touchdowns with 46. And this is pretty cool. When I picked up is holds a single game passing record of 400 yards against Michigan. Now that must have been fun, the cross state rival, right? And brought the team to a 10-2 record and a bowl game win while he was there. Welcome to the show, Bill Burke. I hate to say former, but former Michigan State quarterback.
Well, thanks so much, Jeffrey. I really appreciate the introduction. It's great to be here. Anytime I get to talk some athletics and some
Yeah.
some performance stuff, I'm fired up. I've got to correct you though on some of that introduction.
Okay. But what I mess up?
Well, I unfortunately no longer hold that record for the most yards in a game.
Okay.
I held it for a long time, but that
All
was
right.
broken. I don't know, a few years ago now, but it stood for quite a while, and I was, well, still am proud of that. But
Yeah.
you mentioned it came against Michigan, and yeah, that's one of my favorite games of my entire career, and it came against a guy you might have heard of, Tom Brady, who was on the other
Yeah. I was just
sideline.
gonna say, was Brady the quarterback?
Yeah, he was. But even bigger than that, it was against our arch rival. Which,
Yeah.
coincidentally, the timing this is really, really great because Michigan State plays Michigan this Saturday. So
There you go.
fired up for that as well.
Are you going?
Yeah, we'll be out there. Absolutely. We'll see where the chips fall. It's always a fun event.
Yeah. Now, how close are you to the school,
I'm just 10
geographically?
minutes down the road,
Are you
so we go
kidding
to a
me?
lot
Oh
of
my
home
God.
games, and yeah, my wife's a Lansing, Michigan native, born and raised. So we decided to raise our family here, and I think it's been great for our kids to grow up so close to a Big Ten school.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Bill, I got a ton of questions to ask you here. But before I do that, can you do me a favor? Can you just tell the audience just a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, you and I were talking off the air. I'm originally from Northeast Ohio, Warren, Ohio, close to Youngstown, close to the Pennsylvania border. I've got some roots, or my parents do, I should say, in Western Pennsylvania. So when I really fell in love with the game of football, this was the late 70s, early 80s. I first saw this crazy game on television, and it was the Pittsburgh Steelers. We had three
Mm,
channels on the TV, and it looked more like a piece of furniture than an
yeah.
actual TV.
Yeah.
But they were winning all the Super Bowls, and I just fell in love with this game. I didn't have any athletes in my family, but moved over to Ohio. Finally got the chance to play tackle football as a kid, and then of course, you know, never looked back from there. And I played every year, and was lucky enough to get some offers and some interest from schools to play in college. Ended up at Michigan State. Um, Kind of late in the game in the recruiting process, and as you know, it was a lot different then than it is
Oh,
now.
yeah. I want to get into that in a little bit.
Yeah, and was lucky enough to be in this coach's first recruiting class at Michigan State, who had just been hired, and the guy's name was Nick Saban, and
Yeah.
I was able to be there for actually 5 years with him, almost the exact same time that he was there. Um, and really, more than that, and we can get into this too. But man, not just get my foot in the door, but had an opportunity to be a part of some really milestone games in the school's
Yeah.
history, and then. Like everybody else, had an aspiration to go play in the NFL. I didn't get drafted, but I had a cup of coffee with the Giants. I got to see how that whole thing worked for a little bit, and,
Yeah.
and had a good experience there. And then went into the business world, and had various sales and leadership roles in a lot of different companies. But now, fast forward, I'm a peak performance coach, author, podcast host, and really, really passionate about coaching people, but not on the gridiron, because I had an interest in that, when I was coming out of college, but I didn't want to go down that road because frankly, I saw how miserable a lot of Nick Saban's assistant coaches were, and I wanted
Yeah.
to have a family. So I
Yeah.
feel blessed to kind of be where I am now, and being able to coach people in a different way and have an
Yeah.
impact on them.
Yeah. The college coaching world, man, you just got to be prepared to get fired
Yeah.
because they all do, you
And,
know?
and sell your house and,
Oh, yeah. Move.
change locations every couple
Yeah.
years.
It's almost like don't buy a house, just rent one because you're not gonna be there long,
That's what I would do.
you know? But so let's go backwards in time, right? And I love talking about the recruiting process, because today's world, it's all about money. I don't care what they say. My opinion, the kids are going to the schools paying them the most money for the
Yeah.
most part. But let's go back when you were coming out of high school. One is, how did you end up becoming a quarterback? Was that your choice, or did somebody say, "Hey, Bill, you're a great athlete. You should be the quarterback"? And then how did that progress through high school? And what was the recruiting process like as a high school senior? I don't know, were they talking to you as a sophomore, junior? Because when I was playing, they couldn't talk to you till your last game was over your senior year. So how was that? And was your family involved? Was that a decision just on you? Was there a lot of pressure? What was that all about?
Man, great question. There's a lot to get into there. You know, to answer your first question, when I moved to Ohio, I went out for the team, the Pee Wee youth football, and we were running, everybody on the team was running routes, and coach was throwing the ball. And he threw a ball to me. I don't know whether I didn't catch it or went over my head, but I picked it up and I fired it back at him, and it went flying over his head. And for whatever reason, he recognized that I had an arm on me. So he said, "Why
Yeah.
don't you come over here and you throw these routes, so the old coach doesn't have to do it." And then that was it. That was my discovery story. And I was a quarterback uh, every single year on up through the ranks.
Yeah.
Um, but I didn't, to be honest with you, I just loved playing the game. And so I got to, I played freshman. I was playing JV. So I was a sophomore in high school. And the coach of the varsity, we were at a school where the unwritten rule was, the juniors and seniors play. And
Yeah.
that's just the way it goes because they've earned their time and
Yeah.
paid their dues. And the team was running kind of a wing T offense. So here I am at this 6'4" quarterback, not very fast, but I can throw the ball. Finally, the head coach was talked into allowing the sophomore, to play or to start about halfway through that season. So I go out there. We're playing a big Division I team on the road, and we didn't win the game, but I threw for like 250 yards and a couple of touchdowns. And after one of them, I came off the field, and my teammate, an older backup quarterback, he was jumping up and down, and he goes, "Man, the colleges are going to be all over you." And to be honest, and I'm not exaggerating, I'm not making a joke, I didn't know what a scholarship was.
Yeah.
Um, I watched these guys play in college on Saturdays on TV, but I didn't know how they actually got there.
Yeah.
Nobody explained that to me. So shortly after, I was a quick learner. So shortly after that, I got my very first recruiting letter from any university at any level in any part of the country. And on the top of the envelope was this big green block S from Michigan State University. And the
That
crazy
was your
thing is
first
that
one.
that was my very first one.
Wow.
But in crazy fashion, I never got another one from that school until George Perlis was let go as the head coach and Nick Saban got hired my senior year. So it was a little puzzling, and I never really, got the answer to that until just a year or two ago. And I can tell that story if you want to hear it.
Yeah.
But so that was the start of it all for me. And then I went on, and I still have them all, showing to my son one day. But I've got all these letters from all these schools all over the country. And so, in the back of my head, because I had nobody advising me or telling me any of this stuff, because my family didn't play or anything like that. Um, but I thought I was going to be able to pick any school in the country because I was getting these letters and calls and all sorts of handwritten notes, and I thought, well, I got it made. I can just figure out wherever I want to go. I didn't know at the time though that none of that stuff matters. They send those letters to a lot of different people,
Yeah.
and really what matters is somebody that offers you a scholarship, where they actually offer you the money to pay for your school and say, yes, we want you to come play football here. So I didn't have a lot of those. I probably had more than I thought, but I had made it pretty clear early on that I wanted to play at the highest level. So that meant in a Power Five school, Division
Yeah.
One. So I was holding out for that, and I had a couple of official visits. But like I said, when Nick Saban got hired very late, and he was at the NFL with the Cleveland Browns, they were in the playoffs, so it was kind of a tenuous situation there. But once I made my visit to Michigan State, and I asked very clearly, do I have a scholarship here? And they said yes. And it was the picture of what I expected a college campus to look like. And so I committed on my visit here, and I'm so glad that I did.
Now, was that your first visit?
No, that was not. I took a visit to the University of Maryland, And then
Okay.
after my visit with Michigan State, I canceled a visit to the University of Minnesota.
Okay.
But that was really, and I could have went some other places that were a little on more of a smaller scale,
Yep.
maybe in the MAC. But like I said, it was an eye-opening experience to go from these hundreds of letters from the likes of Notre Dame and Bill Walsh at Stanford and
Yeah.
Penn State and all the big names to actually not having that many scholarship offers. It's like musical chairs.
Yeah.
When the music stops, there's only so many
Well,
chairs.
yep. Yep. Hey, listen, all you need is one,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
And it's funny, you got the one you wanted.
It worked out. It worked
Yeah.
out because I saw a lot of guys that were, more highly touted than me coming out of high school with a lot more accolades or national rankings.
Yeah.
Not even just at other schools or at the position of quarterback, but even after I came to Michigan State, I saw a lot of guys on my team that just, they were there one day and a month later they weren't.
Yeah.
And various reasons for that. They couldn't handle the academics or they couldn't handle the practice schedule. So,
Yeah.
yeah, to be there for 5 years and get on the field and start and be a part of some really great wins is truly a blessing.
It's like something you dream about, right?
Yeah. And, we were talking off air about, the former athlete dilemma, when your career comes to an end.
Yeah.
And for a lot of years, Jeff, I thought that I had kind of come up short and I hadn't reached my dream. It took a lot of reflection and a lot of time to figure out that, man, my dream absolutely came true. And it's
Yeah.
the same dream that a lot of guys had, and they didn't get to live it out. And I did. And for a lot of different reasons on a lot of different levels. Man, like I said, it's one thing to get your foot in the door, but to figure out a way to get onto the field and then stay there and,
Yeah. And
have good
at
people
that
around you.
position, at that level, it's there's only a handful of people that can do it.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
and man, it's the older I get, the further I get away from it, the more I appreciate it.
that's just it's wisdom.
That's right.
It's wisdom. So let's talk about that moment in time, and then we'll fast forward. But 18 years old, showing up, Nick Saban. Now, obviously, his name wasn't as big as it is today then, but it was still a big name, right? Big school, big program, big stadium, big players. What was that like showing up as a 18-year-old kid, and now you got to compete with these guys?
Man, it was life-changing. It really was. You want to talk about the beginning of transformation? That was really where it started for me. I was so naive and so uneducated. I thought, reporting for camp that first day, that I would just kind of check in. They'd check my name off the list, and then I'd go, walk around campus with my parents and just kind of, slowly acclimate myself. But that was not the case. It was like, okay, what's your name? Say bye to your parents. You've got to take a math test. You got to get fitted for pads. You got to take a strength test. You got to, your whole day down to the minute up until lights out at bedtime was already planned out for you. And so I didn't see my parents for the rest of that day. I think they went and purchased a bike for me, came back. I got to see them for another minute. They said bye. They headed back to Ohio, and that was it.
That was it.
That was it. It was 3 straight days of just the freshmen practicing.
Yeah.
And it's not like it was in high school where you go over there to the field after school, you're there for an hour and a half, and then you go home and, to your
Yeah.
parents. That wasn't it at all. It was meetings, more meetings, practice time. Everything was football all day,
Yeah.
every day. We got a little relief when the veterans showed up a few days later. And then, of course, once the students came back and the season actually started, the 2 days were over and things got a little better. But man, I look at some of these guys today that step right in as a true freshman, and there's no
Yeah.
way that I could have played at that level with all the stuff coming at you, classes, the
Yeah.
adjustment being away from home. There's just absolutely no way. I needed that redshirt year
Yeah.
and then some.
What do you think the difference is? Like you said, some of these kids are coming in, like the kid at Michigan. He wasn't he like 17 years old when he hit camp, and
Yeah.
he turned 18 in the season, and then he's winging it all over the place. But he's a huge kid. Is there a difference today than back when you were there
I
playing?
think there is. I think a lot of it can be attributed to these 7-on-7 camps,
Yeah.
and that's just one part of the awareness of what it
Okay.
takes to play at that level and to play earlier, and then the education on how all that works as well. You've got money trickling down into the lower levels in high school, which means that attracts people who are more educated because those guys need advisors and agents, and there's all sorts of knowledge now with the internet around
Yep.
recruiting. We didn't have the internet when I played it.
No.
It was just becoming a thing when my career was ending. So, yeah, it's definitely different now. And transferring when I was in college was not even a
It's unheard of.
consideration. You
Yeah.
just waited your turn, and if you got on the field, you got on the field, and if you didn't, well,
Right.
then you didn't.
Right. So what was Nick Saban like back then? Was he as fiery as he is on the field when he was coaching recently, or
I would say more. I mean, obviously, I didn't play for him in Alabama, but and everybody tends to soften a little bit as they get up there in age. But
yeah,
you got to remember, Nick Saban wasn't Nick Saban when he was at Michigan State. He was still trying to become the
yeah,
Nick Saban that he became in terms
right.
of all the national titles. And he was trying to make a name for himself. He was
Yeah.
younger, he had a lot of energy, and man, he was trying to figure out himself as well as a coach and as a leader. So that's a process for every individual as well. And we were kind of, in the line of fire with some of that stuff, and most of the time, rightfully so. We had a
Yeah.
long way to go and a lot of work to do as a team. But he was tough to play for, and luckily, I was on the offensive side of the ball. He spent most of his time on the defensive field. But man, we had a guy by the name of Gary Tranquil, who was the QB coach and the offensive coordinator, who was basically the offensive version of Nick anyway. So he was harder on us than Nick could have ever been on us. But his whole philosophy was, if you can't handle me getting in your face and being hard on you, how in the world are you going to handle it when 75,000 people are booing
Screaming.
you because you just made a
Yeah.
mistake, on national television? People are planning their entire weekends around your performance on Saturday. So we have to get you ready.
Talk about pressure.
Yeah.
So how did you handle that? I mean, you're a young kid, 75,000 people yelling and screaming. What's it like to be on that field for the first time, the first snap you took? How was that?
Well, that's a great question. And I remember that distinctly too. My very first game action was not at home. Actually, it was in Lincoln, Nebraska, against Nebraska. We were getting blown out, so I wasn't starting. So I got a little mop up duty. And this is the mid '90s now. If you remember Nebraska in the mid '90s, they were
Oh
winning
yeah.
national titles.
Was Osborne
So
the coach then?
yes, he was. And
Yeah.
they had Lawrence Phillips. I don't. Did he win the Heisman or he came very close?
I
Tommy
don't
Frazier
remember.
was the quarterback.
Yeah.
So yeah, it wasn't pretty, and we were still trying to figure ourselves out, and Coach Saban was trying to turn the program around. But man, it's tough to describe that feeling when you
It's all
walk out
red.
there. You're almost out of your body.
Yeah.
It's surreal, and you just look up and you see the sea of red. Luckily, for a quarterback and for any player playing at that level, you've got so much to think about and focus on right in front of you that you don't even have time to get caught up in actually
Yeah.
where you are and all the fans that are in the stadium. As a quarterback, if you're not focused, you're going to get your head taken off because that's what the defense is trying to do. So, but I got through it, and things got a little easier and a little better.
When did all the clapping start? You know what I mean? For the quarterbacks, they're clapping all the time now. That wasn't, you guys weren't doing that, right?
We weren't doing that. We did the lift the leg, the
Yeah.
silent snap count. We did some of that in the shotgun. I don't know when the clap stuff started. I don't even know how, because of the crowd noise, that the
Yeah.
linemen even hear that
Right.
sometimes. I
Yeah.
know they're close in proximity, but man, that's got to be tough too.
I don't even know why it's allowed because it's movement. And if I'm a defensive guy, I might see that, I might move.
Yeah,
Right? I don't
yeah.
know. Yeah, but
Well, you and
like
me
you said,
could get together and form a committee and fix all the problems with the game of football because there's a lot of
well,
them.
yeah, we'll figure that one out, right? So is there anything you took from Saban that you carry with you today?
Oh man, we could do a whole show just on that. I mean, there's so much. I mean, I've got a son and a daughter now that are teenagers, and man, the stuff that's coming out of my mouth, into their ear, they give me the eye roll. But man, it just stays with me, and has and always will. And hopefully, when they have kids one day, they'll be passing those lessons along to them as well. But there's a couple of them. I remember sitting in his office one on one, and he was telling me that in the NFL, every single game comes down to the last minute or
Yeah.
last 2 minutes. So you can't go into a game expecting that you're going to blow the other team out by 40 points. And there's never a point where you can just relax. And he said you've got to expect adversity. And
Mm.
I've carried that with me through my life as well because I found that it's true. You can't just hope for ideal situations. It's not that you are pessimistic or you expect things to go wrong, but you got to be prepared mentally and resilient to expect that adversity because it's just a part of life and it's certainly a part of football. And then one of the other ones, real quick, is he always taught us that every single day, no matter what you're doing or what you're trying to do, you're either getting better or you're
Mm,
getting worse. You're never staying the same. So when you really think about that and you really make decisions moment to moment on what you're doing, you've got to know that at the end of the day, there's this silent or invisible scorecard where, you've either gotten better or you've regressed.
yeah. And then he talks a lot about standards, right? This is the standard. And I forget what I saw somewhere. One of the receivers who was in the NFL, it was a video of something, and it was at one of his practices, and one of the freshmen was jerking around doing something, and the alum said, "Hey, we don't do that around here," and they caught it on film, and I forget who it was. And I'm thinking, man, that's some heavy duty, like built-in brainwashing standard, like this of respect. Like we don't do that around here,
Yeah.
and in today's world, I don't know how that really happens a lot. These young kids with the money, they're just like almost doing whatever they want sometimes.
Well, I think that's why Saban got out of it because he
Yeah,
couldn't fully control that culture like he knew he needed to in order to play at a championship level. And I don't
yeah,
blame him. You just knew what the culture was and what the expectations were and what the standards were
yeah,
under Coach Saban. And I don't know that a lot of college coaches now have that type of influence. Unfortunately, some of these kids are making the same amount that the coach is making
yeah,
almost.
right.
And I interviewed Mark D'Antonio, the winningest coach in Michigan State history, earlier today, and I think he said like something like 50 to 70% of college rosters are different every year. So
Oh my
how do you even
God.
manage that? When you've got almost an entirely new team every year, you got to start over in
Yeah.
terms of building that culture, and that's really difficult to do.
Then how do you like like say for you, for example, you were there 5 years, right? My question is well, how long did it take for you as the quarterback to earn the respect from the team as the leader? Because I know it doesn't happen overnight, right? And that's hard to do. And then how does that even happen today? Like, are the teams really respecting their quarterback, knowing that he might be gone tomorrow? Do they build that allegiance, that alliance, that relationship, like the ones that you had? What do you think?
I don't think there's any way that you can do it. I mean, think about it. These college players are with their teams less than professional players are. At least in the
Yeah,
professional world, they're under contract for 3 years or 4 years or whatever. If you're a college player, you can be there for 1 year and then leave. So that's, and again, Coach D'Antonio and I were talking this morning about the wins and the program building comes from the relationship, getting
yeah,
to know the players and their families and getting to know what they're interested in and what they're passionate about beyond the game.
yeah,
And like you said, a lot of that takes a lot of time. And I don't know how you do that coach to player and then also player to player, that
yeah,
bonding through shared experience that takes time. And when you don't have that, man, you're setting yourself up for a longer climb and a
yeah,
tougher go of it.
yeah. So how do you pinpoint the moment at Michigan State that you say, man, that's one of my favorite moments? Anything jump out? Because you probably had a ton of them.
I had a ton of them. Well, the first real breakthrough, I would call it, was in '98. It was my junior year. We were going down to play the Ohio State Buckeyes, and I'm from Ohio. I'm all fired up. I want to prove to John Cooper, who was the coach at Ohio State at the time, that overlooking me, not that I was dying to go there, but it was kind of a chip on
Yeah,
my shoulder that the
yeah,
hometown school didn't want me. We were not ranked. We were very inconsistent. I think by that point we were 4-4. Ohio State, on the other hand, was ranked number one in the entire country. And this is late in the year. This is November. Everybody, much like this year, penciled them in as the national champion and said they're the best team in the country. And so we go down there and 92,000 people, and it's a little different down there. If you're not familiar with Ohio State and their passion for football, it's
yeah,
it's on another level down there.
yeah,
Um, But long story short, we got down in the game, trailed almost the whole way. I threw a pick six in the third quarter to put us even deeper in a hole. But we got a lot of great performances out of a lot of guys, and ended up, even though we were 28-point underdogs, we actually pulled the game out and won 28-24.
Oh,
And
wow.
as all the writers said the next day in the newspapers, we shocked the world. And so that was really the big breakthrough moment. Nick Saban in the locker room, I had never seen this type of emotion from him towards any player, let alone me. He gives me a big hug and a kiss on the cheek in the locker room. It's just I've never seen anything like that or been a
You
part of
must
it.
have went berserk. Must have been crazy.
Oh my goodness! Because that was a huge win
Yeah,
for our team, but I think Coach Saban individually as well. And I didn't know this at the time, but looking back, that was a breakthrough moment in his coaching career. That was
sure.
his defining moment. He's talked since about how that game is where he went from a transactional leader to a transformational leader. Uh,
Mm,
his whole process that he's famous for now, that's where it was born. It was born that week because
okay.
we had to approach the game differently. When you're taking on the number one team in the country and nobody thinks you can win and you're four touchdown underdogs and you're going on the road, you gotta, as a coach, you gotta figure out a way to get inside the head of your players and,
Yeah.
and change their perspective leading up to that game. So that's exactly what he did, and it worked. And man, you all know the success that he had ever since.
Oh, yeah. It's incredible. So your two rivals was it Ohio State and Michigan? You beat those two guys. You have a great season.
Well, Michigan is number one. Michigan is
Okay.
number one. They're only 60 miles down the road. We've always got an extra fire in our belly to go play
Yep.
that one. So that's number one. Ohio State, I wouldn't say is a huge rival,
No.
but certainly a game that's circled every year because of their history and their proximity to, our state here in Michigan and how good they are and what an opportunity it is to go play those guys because they're always at the top of the heap. So you can use them as a measuring stick. But Michigan's always and will always be number one.
Yeah. So what do you miss the most about being at Michigan State?
Man, I miss the players. I miss the
Yeah.
locker room after a cold November practice. When
Yeah.
we used to sit there and kind of, it's being in that arena and in the fight together, the
Yeah.
highs and the lows.
Yeah.
I don't envy people that play individual sports. I don't know that I'd be able to do that because, man, having 100 other guys to
Yeah.
lean on and to pick you up and to really build that, um, empathy with because that's not a word I ever really used in, Big Ten football programs that are filled
Yeah.
with testosterone. You're not
Yeah.
talking about empathy, but when I look at the guy, across from me and
Yeah.
he's got his hands on his knees because his
Yeah.
lungs are burning just like mine are.
Yeah.
You don't have to talk about it. You know what
No.
that guy's going through.
Yeah.
And he's got your back, and of course you have his as well. So that's what
Yeah.
I miss the most. It's not the
Yeah.
games, it's not all those big moments that everybody
Yeah.
saw. Although those were,
Yeah.
so memorable and meaningful as well. But man, I miss the guys. And
Yeah.
there's a reunion every year that comes around, and so that's really the only time that we get to see each other because people come in from all parts of the country, and
Yeah.
that's just the best part of it. I don't even
Yeah.
need to go over to the facility or hear from the current coach. It's just we tell the same stories and
Yeah.
we go back in time
Yeah.
and reminisce. So that's really
Yeah.
what I miss the most.
I call it's remembering all the joint suffering,
Yeah,
right? And like you said, your lungs are burning, your throats are burning, you're freezing, your fingers are numb, and you all did it together,
yeah,
and the bus rides, the plane rides, the hotels, the locker room after a win or even after a loss. The locker room is a place where you don't want to leave.
yeah.
Like you'll just, where's my blanket? I'll just stay right here,
That's
you know.
right.
But yeah, that's cool. So you performed under a ton of pressure, right? So how did you take that resilience from college and bring it into your professional life?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I've since realized that I'm really fortunate in that respect to have faced that pressure because there are a lot of people who weren't athletes like we were, and who are walking around in the world, maybe in a corporate setting, who don't have that resilience. And I was kind of forced into it and forced to learn it, and had one of the best teachers for it. But as a quarterback, I play this game and I'm in this stadium. There's 75,000 people, and regardless of whether I just made the best throw of my life or whether I just made the worst throw, there's a play clock
Yeah.
and the time starts ticking down immediately after the last play. And I've got to forget whatever just happened. I got to get the next play because I got to get my guys lined up and ready to go. So it's that next play mentality.
Mm.
It's having a short memory about what just happened, good or bad. I mean, I tell this story, and people think I'm joking, but after a game, I have to go into the media room and answer questions from the
Yeah.
reporters, and they'd ask me questions about specific plays in the game, and I had no recollection of it. And I would just make something up, to get through the interview and so I could get
Yeah.
out of there. But I really did not remember until I went back and watched the tape
Watch the tape. Yeah.
because I was forgetting it immediately, and I got really good at that. But I had to be, and I think that's a benefit that I have now as well. You've got to have a short memory. Um, to number one, not stay down on the mat when you get knocked down, but
Yeah.
number two, when you experience success or have a win, you can't get put to sleep by that and take your foot off the gas either. So that was a really important lesson.
Yeah. You got to keep moving,
That's
right?
right.
Keep moving. Now, you talk about, I wrote this down, embracing discomfort when peak performance is required, which is kind of in line with what we're just talking about. You know, can you explain what that means to the person who's listening and say, hey, this is the underlying reason why we all have to embrace discomfort?
Yeah, great question again, and I'll take it back to that Ohio State game because I didn't talk about exactly how we approached that game, but Saban walked into the team meeting on Monday before the game, and he said, we got to forget about the scoreboard, and it sounds cliche, but he explained what he meant. He said we've got to treat every single play in this game like it's its own entity. And he asked us how long a football play lasts, and we said 6 seconds, and of course he goes, yeah, 6 seconds is not a long time to do anything. Anything in life that you can fit into that
Yeah.
description, it's not a long time. So he talked about how we all needed to stick our hand in the fire for those 6 seconds, and we had to strain and we were going to get some pain. There might be left with some scars, but we had to
Yeah.
stick our hand in that fire for 6 seconds and only concentrate or only acknowledge those 6 seconds. That's it. Forget about what the big scoreboard says in the end zone. And that's really how we approached that game. And it was really the beginning of his process. And that's how we actually were able to win the game because
Yeah.
oddly enough, Jeff, even late in the game when we were behind, it felt like we had an eternity, an infinite amount of time to accomplish what we needed to accomplish to eventually come out on top. And I think that
Yeah.
was all due to that mental approach of just sticking your hand in the fire for those 6 seconds. So that's really a core of what my philosophy is when we're talking about embracing discomfort, because so many people run away from it, and then you
Yeah.
don't really get to that point where you start to experience growth or a breakthrough, and you never realize that if that discomfort is really the gateway to everything that you want. And if you did realize that, I think more people would lean into that.
Yeah. Well, they run from pain and they run to comfort, right?
That's right.
But they don't, because they think the pain's going to last forever.
That's
And
right.
like you said, it's 6 seconds. But I
That's right.
think when you're in that second three of six, sometimes it feels like, man, this is going to last forever,
Yeah.
you know? And I think people can't see that far down the road sometimes.
And I talk to salespeople too, and I relate it to, the discomfort that we all as salespeople experience when we've got that phone in our hand and we know
Yeah.
we've got that important person that we really want to call, but we've been putting it off for 2 weeks. And I ask people, how long does it take you to actually dial the phone? And not to have a conversation, but just to dial that number. Like, what is that? How long does
Yeah.
that take? And it's about, 5, 6 seconds
Yeah.
to dial those numbers. Don't worry about what's going to happen. They might not answer. They might answer. They might tell you no. They might hang up on you. They
They
might tell
might
you
say
yes.
yes.
There's all sorts of stuff, but
Yeah.
don't worry about that. Just dial that number. You'll figure the rest out.
Yeah. Just do it. Just
That's
just do
right.
it. So you went from the football field to the business world, right? So what have you taken from the business world that helps you connect? I mean, I'm sorry, what you took from the athletic world that helps you connect with the business leaders that you talk with today?
Well, that's a great question. And number one, I'd say it's surprising that so much of the business world takes its cues from the sports world,
Yeah.
and they try and model that because sports are a little different, especially at those high levels. It's different because um, in the sports world, in the Big Ten football world, you talk to each other a little bit differently than people in cubicles in offices do. So
Sure.
that's number one. That's one of the things. But there's also a much bigger sense of urgency in the sports world. And I mentioned some of those clocks that you can see
Yeah.
and that are ticking down. And, Coach Saban he wasn't looking at a 10-year plan. It was now. Like, we got to figure
Yeah.
this out now. So there's an urgency to that, and so there's certainly a lot of parallels and correlations. Uh, but I think that, again, I took for granted, what I experienced and what I learned in that arena, and I realized that not everybody got to experience that. So I can and have brought a lot of those lessons to the business world as well. But again, as you know, Jeff, so much of this comes down to connection and
Yeah.
communication. How can I connect with you? How
Yeah.
can we find common ground when we don't know each other
Yeah.
and we're trying to sit here and figure out how we can coexist or work together?
Yeah.
So it's just like getting to know your teammate who
Yeah.
is from the other part of the country and he's from a different background, but what do we have in common? And
Yeah.
as you know, more often than not, we have more in common than we do
Right.
um, you know, then we are different. So it's
Yeah.
it's pretty easy to do that if you invest the time and do it with sincerity and authenticity as well.
I just say you just got to find the synergy, the likability, and the commonality.
That's
You put
right.
those three things together, you got a team,
That's right.
and once you find that though, let me ask you this question, and I ask everybody this: put yourself on the field and your whatever that moment is, like you kind of described a really good one before against Ohio State. You're out there playing. Can you describe to anybody who's listening, what does it feel like to be out there when you're in the zone, things are going great, and everything is like perfect, and you're out there playing the game you love? Can you describe that to people, what it feels like to be out there?
Man, it's exhilarating and it's really difficult to put it into words. It's
Right.
such a unique experience. If you go to a game and you're a fan and I still go to games with my son and I get chills when the team runs out onto the field and the
Yeah.
music's blasting
Yep.
and I'm just sitting there. Imagine that you're about to run out there and perform and you've got the helmet on and you've got people that want to hurt you and
Yeah.
you're all sorts of emotions are wrapped up in it. This is your dream. You've waited and worked for years to
Yeah.
be able to do this. It's not just something that you thought about doing that morning and ran out there. But man, when you're in the zone and things are clicking, you've never felt confidence like that before because you literally cannot wait to get into the huddle to call the next player to do it
Yeah.
again. It's like hitting
Yeah.
the sweet golf shot, right?
Yeah.
You don't know how you did it necessarily, but when it goes right down the fairway, you can't wait to do it again.
Yeah. Let's do it
And
again.
and not only are you having success at your task, at the mechanics of whatever it is, but you are doing this on a stage with 75,000 people screaming and TV
Yeah.
cameras in your face. And man,
Yeah.
when you have one play where you hit it perfect and you score a touchdown, it's one thing to do that, but to do it with all the guys that you've been working with and
Yeah.
to see the exhilaration on their faces,
Yeah.
and then to also look up in the stands and see those 75,000 people
Going
that
nuts.
traveled from out of state who have
Yeah.
planned their entire weekend around what you're doing. Man, there's no words really to describe that. It's just it's euphoria in every sense of
Yeah.
the word.
You hit the word. I was waiting for that word to come out. It's euphoric.
Yeah.
You can't, and I asked the question to a lot of the guests, and some like, I can't explain it. I'm like, but if I know what you're talking about. Now, I don't know at your level, at like remotely close, but I was out on a football field in college and we played in front of not a crowd like that, but crowds. And I just remember the feeling of what it's like to be out there. I can't put it into paragraphical description other than the one word, it's euphoric. And you try to explain it to the guy who's never played anything and sitting in the stands watching. They're like, what are you talking about? They don't get it. So it's a feeling that it's a drug. It's definitely a drug, and it's the dopamine kicking in that just drives us crazy.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a cocktail of brain chemicals that are just firing
Yeah,
at crazy levels all at the same time
yeah,
during those moments, and it's incredible. It's incredible. That's why
yeah,
guys try and hang on as long as they can and play as long as they can. And but how you know it's so unique and it's so euphoric is that there's no other really way to duplicate that
no,
outside of that venue, outside of
yeah,
that, you know,
yeah.
arena.
And that's why so many men and women, when they leave the game, they that drug is gone, and they
Right.
struggle to take that next step to the next level of whatever it might be, and it becomes difficult, right?
100%. And that's why I wrote the book. And, that's why there have been people that are benefiting from it. And I think it's an issue that a lot of people just don't talk about because when you're in these programs, there's so many resources that are dedicated to helping you become the best player you can and even to an extent the best person that you can. But once your eligibility is up and once you've moved on, the resources also have to redirect their attention to the new crop of players that
Yeah,
they're focused on. So,
yeah,
there's a definite feeling of loss to a degree, for a lot of players out there because they don't have all these uh, basic human needs
yeah,
that we all need, but athletes are getting in huge amounts when they're actual players. This
yeah,
recognition and the pride and the camaraderie and the, on and on and on. That
yeah.
goes from like level 100 down to level 0 almost
Oh
overnight.
yeah, oh yeah. And the withdrawal they go through is again, like I said, it's like withdrawing from drugs.
Yeah,
It's hard to deal with. So your podcast, the Fortitude Forum, right? Let's talk
that's
about
right.
that. What inspired that? What kind of guests you have on there? Why do you do it? What do you look for when you're in there? And what are you hoping to accomplish with it?
Well, all great questions. Again, I started it because I love the medium. Number one, I like to say that the show is where mental toughness meets real world success. I'm a performance coach. I'm always fascinated in the mental side of
Yeah,
not just athletics but peak performance because I think that's really the foundation and where it all starts. We see as fans when we watch these games, we see the guys and marvel at their physicality. But man, those breakthroughs I like to say, and some of the speaking that I do, those start beneath the skin, well before what we see on the field or on the court. So I love to profile these stories of adversity and how people go from, all of their interpersonal struggles and challenges to eventually accomplish great things because I
yeah,
saw that firsthand, in my experience as well, and the great leaders that I was around. And number two, obviously, I wanted to have an impact on those people that maybe didn't have the experience that I had, and they can
yeah,
take some of that value from my guests and from my own knowledge and use it to their advantage. And then lastly, I would say I want to leave a legacy. When I'm long gone, I want my kids to be able to, even though they're not so interested in it now to the degree that I would like them to be, I want to leave my voice on recording so they can go
yeah,
back and learn from it as well, and hopefully that the gift of what I've been taught, hopefully that can pass through me and on to them
yeah.
as well for a long time.
Now, how old are your kids?
I have a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old.
Okay, so they're getting old enough to want to listen.
Yeah, well, they're just so busy, they don't really have
Yeah,
time for that, but
yeah.
maybe one day.
Oh, they will. So who are some of your guests that had really stood out for you?
Yeah, well, I try and have a wide spectrum. I've had executives from the healthcare industry, from finance. I've had former athletes on there as well. Everybody kind of comes at it from a little bit of a different angle. I've had a former Olympian on there who gave some really great insight into her process and her struggles. When she was in the Olympics, I really try and relate a lot of people's experience to the masses of listeners that might be listening because I'm always thinking about how can they apply it in their own lives and
Yeah,
a lot of these things that I learned are really universal and they can be applied in different ways. And one of the things I love to do in my work is relate how my experience is actually in that athletic arena in that stadium as a quarterback. That's not so different, or it can easily be applied to a leader in a boardroom,
yeah,
in a business field. And it's fun to kind of connect those dots for people and let them know that, even though that person might not have played quarterback like I did, we're not really that different in terms of what I did then and what they're trying to do now. So, yeah, I love the podcast, and man, I'm committed to it, and looking forward to doing it for a very long time.
Yeah. And how many episodes have you done so far?
I'm coming up on 30 now, so it's pretty
Good.
new. But again, it's that consistency that you and I talked about, and the consistency that I learned, at Michigan State, being an athlete.
Yeah.
Anything worth doing, and the accomplishment of it, the euphoria of it, is going to come, a
Later.
long time from now. It's not in the
Right.
beginning. You
Yeah.
don't blow people out in the first quarter. You got to
No,
put in the
no.
work.
Yeah. Somebody, when I decided to start doing this show, um, somebody who did like 400 episodes in their podcast, he's like, look, if you're not going to do 100, commit to doing 100 episodes. Don't even bother doing one. He goes, so
Yeah,
that's how long it's going to take to get you everything rolling. I'm like, man, that's a lot of episodes,
yeah.
but yeah, so that's good. So, you think about peak performance, right? Are there any common barriers that you find with people that, prevent them from like what I would say, like unlocking like their real potential of getting to that next level?
Man, there's so much to that because everybody's a little different. I like to
Yeah.
say that in the work that I do, I help people go from blind spots to breakthroughs. And the scary
Mm.
thing is we all have a blind spot somewhere. And it's tough to read that label when you're actually inside the bottle. So unless somebody like a coach tells you, hey, you might be struggling with this, or maybe this is something that you need to look at that you can't see right now, it's tough to give one blanket answer for that. But when I work with people, I just help them start to uncover what those might be, because a lot of people think that they're struggling with the tactics and the mechanics of whatever their industry is, and maybe they are. But even if you get those corrected, you're still not going to reach your full potential unless you've looked in the mirror, so to speak, and done
Yeah.
some work on yourself. And man, for a lot of years, I didn't do any of that work. I didn't know that was what was necessary for me to kind of figure out who I was, even without this identity as an athlete or a quarterback. So most people, they go, "Oh, well, I'm a financial advisor, or I'm a teacher, or whatever." But man, I help people understand that no, that's not who you are. That's what you do, but
It's what
that's
you
not
do.
that's not who you are. Strip all those titles away, and who are you, and what do you truly want? Most people can't answer that question, Jeff.
Yeah.
What do you want? And they go,
Yeah.
well, I want this, this, and this, but that's usually something that they think they should want, or maybe it's something that somebody else wants, or maybe it's something that their family thinks they should want.
Yeah.
So helping people uncover that, and then why that's important to them. And again, like I said, what's holding them back? That's really the beginning of the work that I do, because we're all walking blind through this world, a
Yeah.
little, to an extent. Some of us more than others, but we really got to figure out who we are and what's most important to us before we can dive into accomplishing things, and figuring out exactly what it is we're good at.
Yeah. So what inspired you to become a peak performance coach?
For some reason, I never really realized this until, just several years ago. I've always been fascinated why we all do what we do. And
Hmm.
there's a psychological aspect to all this. And I do believe that everything starts in the mind, and the mind is much more powerful than we know. And if we can tap into some of that, how much better will the outcome and the results be in whatever it is that we're trying to accomplish? The sad part is, and this is really where my mission comes in, the sad part is most people don't pause to do that work in any
Yeah.
capacity. I think there's more awareness around it now than there was, 20 years ago. But I think you're seeing in the professional sports world, especially, how important it is to figure out, some of those mental things that happen, from the neck up, and not just how big our muscles are or how fast we can run
Yeah.
the 40 in.
Well, I mean, in the sports world, yeah, we spend their entire time working on the neck down,
That's right.
getting the body in shape, but the mind without the body follows the mind.
That's right.
Think
And
about it, if you're out there playing against Michigan, if your brain is not thinking in the right way, your body's not following.
that's 100% accurate. And I've become a really big tennis fan. My wife's a big tennis fan
Okay.
now. It's my second favorite sport, and I'm watching these matches. Man, the difference in champions and really good pro players, it
Yeah.
really is not physical at all. You see them get frustrated, and they're out there by
Yeah.
themselves, and they're throwing their racket. And I just want to. I wish I could just have a conversation with all of
Yeah.
them. And
You want
I
to shake
believe I
them.
could help them.
I wrote down a couple of your quotes, right? And you have something, a part where I wrote down says motivation's temporary, right? And believing that the best version of you is possible. So how do you help people believe that after they're faced with setbacks, burnouts in their career or their whatever? How do you get them to believe that their best version is really possible?
Well, I say first of all that motivation is temporary, and really the opposite of that, and the thing that really is uncomfortable for a lot of people is that discipline is really where peak performance comes into play and gets you to where you want to go. And
Yeah,
you're right. A lot of people don't fully believe at their heart that the best version of themselves is possible because I think there are so many limiting beliefs that they have.
yeah,
And when you think about the discomfort, as we've talked about throughout this conversation, that it's going to take to reach those goals, I think a lot of people shy away from that. Discipline, when you hear that word, it has a connotation, right? It's a little bit, makes you pull back just a little bit. And I'm the same
yeah,
way. Another one of those words is accountability. Nobody likes that word at all. But my old coach Nick Saban used to say, and still does, and we talked about standard earlier. You have to put your standards, whatever those are, and of course, you've got to take the time to establish them in the first place. But those
yeah,
standards have to be stronger than your feelings. So, can you
yeah,
make yourself do the thing that you know you have to do, even when you don't feel like it?
yeah,
And that was 80 to 90% of my college experience. I didn't feel like doing any of that stuff. And I
yeah,
was
yeah,
forced to do it.
yeah,
Otherwise, I wouldn't have had a spot on the team. But now, without that coach and the people listening, if they don't have a coach, are they disciplined enough to make themselves do that thing when they really don't feel like doing it?
yeah,
And I've got a lot of frameworks that I work people through, and the first one is I like to say that dreams are the destination. Everybody has dreams, right? The second one is decisions are the directions to get you to those dreams. But the third one is really where the rubber meets the road, and that's discipline is the difference. And
yeah,
most people fall short right there because you've got to have some sort of system in your life where there's the implementation of discipline. And most people don't realize that discipline isn't a punishment, but discipline is really the highest level of self respect that you can have for yourself. When you're undisciplined, you're really disrespecting yourself. And so
yeah.
that's something that you got to take a look at and work towards. And if you can't do it yourself, which most people can't, well, there are plenty of coaches out there that can help you do that.
Yeah, and you got to want it, right? You said accountability. A lot of people look at accountability as a negative word and discipline's negative. You got to change your perspective of it,
That's
and
right.
accountability. Like I want people to hold me accountable. If that's the expectation, this job's got to get done, and I'm not getting the job done, you got to let me know. If we can do it better, let's do it better, right?
Well, you got a growth mindset. Unfortunately, not everybody's like that. So,
Uh,
but if they want to be, they can become that. That's
yeah.
the good
And,
news.
and don't get me wrong, every now and then I'm like, what are you talking about? But you have to stay open-minded to the what I call constructive correction, not criticism, because criticism to me is you're making fun of somebody or whatever. Correction, if I'm in a business or I'm an athlete, I want to know what I'm doing wrong now. Tell me now. Don't make me screw it up in front of people. Maybe it's going to cost me a game or cost me money. Tell me now. The sooner the better.
Yeah,
You know.
that's right. Totally agree.
So talk about your book. Tell me about the book. Where can they get it? What's inside of it? What can people come from it? What was the inspiration of it? And what's the mission behind it?
Yeah, thank you for that. It's called Victory Outside the Arena. I originally wrote it because I know there's a lot of athletes when their careers come to an end, it's like, what next? Who
Yeah,
am I now? Where did everybody go? What's my next move? Who am I? All those deep questions. But it's really, I've learned it's really been impactful for people that aren't former athletes as well. I had a guy that was an engineer for 40 years and he retired and he read it and he was like, wow, this really speaks to me because I don't know who I am now. I was this one thing for 40 years
yeah,
and now I got to figure some new things out. So it's really a book about transformation and transition. But anybody that's really interested in growth can benefit from it. And my hope is that just anybody that reads it takes one sentence or one concept from it and that helps them. And really the long and short of it is going back to what you said earlier, the best version of you really is possible, but we've got to understand that we all it chasing that or pursuing that is not really a luxury. It's not like an option. It's we all have a responsibility to do that. And I look at it now as a duty of mine. I've been given all these gifts and all these talents, and we all have them, no matter who you are, what your background is. So we have a responsibility to chase those and to unwrap those and uncover those and to use them for good to impact others.
Yeah.
So I really, to what you said, it's really about changing our perspective on things. And when we look at things from a different angle, they look a lot better sometimes. And I think that the book has really helped people. It's had an impact, and my hope is that it will continue to do so as well.
Yeah. Now, how long ago did you write it?
I wrote it 2023. It was published.
Okay. I mean, I ordered mine yesterday, so
Awesome.
looking forward to getting in and reading it. So do if you go speak to a company, is your speech kind of around that book and the things they can do from within it?
There are elements of that, sure. The book is, really there, it's packed with a lot of concepts. We talk about limiting beliefs. We talk
Yeah.
about some of the things I mentioned that athletes and human beings need, in terms of recognition and camaraderie and all those good things. But I tailor my talks to the audience that I'm talking to. Because not everybody's a sports fan, so those
Yeah.
stories don't necessarily resonate with everybody. But there are parallels from the sports world to just about every type of business and every type of role. So I really pride myself on customizing my message because I want to make sure that there's value for the organization and that there are
Yeah.
takeaways that they can implement into what they're trying to accomplish in whatever arena they're operating in.
Now this is a crazy question. Probably shouldn't ask you, but I'm gonna ask you anyway. Is Do you get more amped up talking to the corporate world or more excited talking to a team?
It's not about who I'm talking to. For me, it's very personal because I discovered that yes, I'm giving a talk and yes, I'm trying to teach and coach, but at the same time, even though I'm an introvert and always have been, I found a new way to perform, just like I did, when I was on the stage, which was the
Yeah.
field, back in my athletic career. And there's adrenaline associated with that. There's some risk, there's some vulnerability. You've got to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
And you can't really control whether everybody in the audience loves it or appreciates it. But all you can do is like I've been saying this whole time is stick your hand in the fire. And I look at it as a new challenge and an
Yeah.
opportunity, not just to actually perform the talk, but to prepare for it. I mean, there's a whole game plan and lead up and
Oh,
preparation
yeah.
and studying that needs to take place, and that is challenging as well. Because you've got
Sure.
to use your creativity in a way that's going to be most impactful for the message.
Yeah. How can you say that you're a Big Ten starting quarterback, one of the biggest schools in the country, and you're an introvert?
It's just genetics, it's not my personality to seek out attention, which to be
Right?
honest with you, at times during my career it was a challenge. There were times where I just wanted to kind of shy away from all the attention and just,
Yeah.
put the hood on and be anonymous. But you've got to answer media questions. Your name's in the paper every single day almost, especially during the football season. But it forced me out of my comfort zone, and I
Yeah.
realized that it came with the territory. And man, that there was nothing that could have pushed me away from the opportunity to play quarterback. I loved everything about it. I loved being the guy in charge. I loved knowing not just my role, but um, everybody else's role and making sure all those puzzle pieces were in place and knowing exactly what the defensive responsibilities were. And I love the chess game part of it. So all the stuff that came with it, I welcomed it with open arms.
Not many do, right? Not many do like that. Welcome that. But that's great. So, advice. What advice, and you might say, well, I'm a little bit too old for this to give it to these young guys, but what advice can you give to the incoming athletes that are taking their next level step to Big Ten football? And what advice can you give to the young man or woman who, okay, the game's over now. How do I handle that?
Well, I'll tell you this, if I could go back and do it again, knowing what I know now, I would go in there and I would make it known to everybody in the program exactly what my intentions were. And I wouldn't just state those with words. I would show people that I was going to be far and away above and beyond the person that outworked everybody else. And that just means asking questions, coming in prepared, being proactive. I would have come into the building before the coaches got there, and I would have had the whiteboards covered with all sorts of notes from watching film, that type of thing. Doing
Yeah.
much more than is required by your coach or your program. Acting like a professional, acting like a coach would, who is 20, 30 years older than you. I think people now, because of all the stimulation and all the distractions they have coming at them, we're almost we almost don't have the capacity or the energy to do what I just described. But if you really want to set yourself apart and you really want to push yourself and you really want to find out or get as close to peak performance as possible, then you've got to go well beyond your limits of what you think is possible. And I would encourage people as well, because doubt is always going to come into play at
Mm.
some point. But I would encourage people, if you're going to doubt anything, don't doubt your ability, don't doubt your talent, doubt your limits, doubt what
Yeah.
truly is actually restricting you, because your limits are far greater than even you think they are. But really, your limits are determined by only by what you're willing to attempt. It's not your luck or your circumstances or any of that other stuff. It's not, your physicality, for example. It's really the courage to attempt things that maybe you don't even believe yet that you can accomplish.
I'm just writing that down. I mean, because I'm going to use that tomorrow. You know, don't doubt, or doubt your limits. That I've never heard that one before. That's a good one.
Yeah,
Doubt
don't
your
doubt
limits.
don't doubt whether you think you can do it. Just doubt, what the lines are on your limits.
Yeah. And you said before, do more than what's asked of you. Man, that is almost unheard of for a lot of people today. It's everyone, most people, let me come in as late as possible, go home as early as possible, do as least amount as possible, get paid as much as possible. It doesn't work that way, you know? But that's how the world looks at things sometimes.
But what if your default, what if your baseline, what if what you considered as just a requirement was everybody else's above and beyond? What if you just changed
Yeah.
that definition for yourself? And to do more is probably really doesn't require that much more time or that much more
No.
energy. But if you made that your default, man, how much further along would you be if you didn't? And then how much
Yeah.
further along are you going to be ahead of your competitors or even your peers?
One of the things I ask people in my world here is if you can go back 4 months ago and redo what you did over the last 4 months, what would you do different? And if you did do it, where would you be today? And they come up with all these things. I'm like, well, that's not well, whatever you just said, you now have to do for the next 4 months.
That's right.
And they wrote down their own stand. That's their standard now. That's it. So
Yeah,
don't second guess it. You know, um, Crazy stuff, right? It's all in our brain, all in our brain.
it sure is. I believe it is.
So last question for you. Um, you got a long way to go. You're still a young guy. I'd pay to be your age right now, right? And I know there's a lot of things you want to accomplish and do, but how do you want people, when they hear your name, how do you want to be remembered one day?
Man, that really is the question, isn't it? I want to be remembered as somebody who had an impact on everybody that I came across in
Yeah.
one way or another. Um, I think about mission and I think about legacy, because to be frank with you, Jeff, it's not that many years after we're put in the ground that we are forgotten about,
Oh
regardless
yeah.
of what we accomplish. So how long can we be remembered? How long can we extend that period before people kind of move on and redirect their attention in other places. And I mentioned the podcast. That is something that will live on for a long time,
Forever.
hopefully. Uh, but I wanna put things into people that will live with them for as long as they're walking around, because I know that there are people who have done that for me. And man, to pass on those lessons that will have a ripple effect in every
Yeah.
part of your life, to do that for somebody else is, I really think that's the greatest gift that you can give them.
It's all about giving,
That's
right?
right. And you mentioned a quote that you can't take credit for, or you couldn't remember who said it, and I'll give you one of my own that I can't take credit for. Legacy is not something that you leave for somebody; it's something that you leave in somebody.
Mm,
So that's what I'm trying to do each and every day.
that's huge. Is that in your book?
That's not. I came across that after I published it.
Can
That'll be
can you go?
in the next book.
Can you put an insert in there, or something extra in there?
Well,
That's a good
I've
one.
got plans to write more, so still to come.
Good. So we talked about a lot of stuff, Bill. You know, we talked about college, coming into college, why you're in college, after college, what you're doing, the performance coach, your book. Is there anything we haven't touched on you think we should hit before we wrap it up?
I don't think so. That's kind of the long and short of it. And I think that, we went deep in some spots, and certainly could go deeper and longer, given more time. But, that's kind of the gist of it. I think that the thing that I would want everybody to remember, especially from my coach Nick Saban, is to just expect the adversity,
Yeah.
because I think too many people cross their fingers and hope that the ideal happens, and that's just not reality. But when you're expecting adversity, I think you already have an advantage over everybody else, because you're going to immediately try and figure out what the contingency plan is for dealing with that. You've got to have that audible, so to speak, to get
Yeah.
yourself out of the bad situations and respond. So that's the message I would leave everybody with.
Great message. And I think some people wake up every day thinking that every day is going to be perfect and there will be no adversity. And then when they're hit with it, they don't know how to respond. So if you're expecting, the defensive end coming around the left side to be hitting you, and it's coming, it's easier to react. So just expect it.
Yeah, and for the leaders listening, if you're in a position of leadership, much like I was as a quarterback, you've got to maintain that even keel, whether it's, high or low going on around you, because as a leader, you might have that title, but maybe you haven't stepped into that identity yet as a leader, but you've got eyes on you.
Yeah.
People are waiting to see how you react.
Oh
In
yeah.
my case, there were 75,000 people waiting to see what my body language was like. So if you're a
Yeah.
leader, you've got to be aware of that, and you've got to be conscious and intentional about that as well.
Yeah. I mean, what do they say? They pay more attention to what you do versus what you say,
That's right.
you
That's
know?
right.
So how can people get a hold of you? They want to talk to you, they want to hire you, they want to hear more about your programs. How can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, my website is bill-burke.net. All my information's on there. I'm building a community of high performers on there. If you want to get involved in that, certainly that's an option. I've got a wait list for that. Available booking now for 2026 for speaking engagements. I do some consulting and coaching as well. And if you want to grab a copy of the book, it's available on Amazon. But if you want to do it in a little less expensive way, I give away a free copy. I'll put one in the mail to you. You just have to pay the shipping and handling. And you can find that at bill-burke.net/free book. If you just want to go to Amazon, that might be a little bit quicker, but you're going to pay a little bit more as well. But happy to connect with anybody. As far as social media goes, I hang out mostly on LinkedIn. I found that that's where my people are for the most part, but would love to hear from your listeners, athlete or
Yeah.
non-athlete.
Yeah, and that's how I found you, LinkedIn.
Yeah,
And it's a place where so many people are spreading the word.
that's right.
So so Bill, thanks for being on the show. I appreciate it. I'm going to be hopping onto your podcast, listening to some of the episodes. I'm looking forward to hearing some of your great guests on there. I'm sure there's a bunch of takeaways I can use myself, in the world that I work in. And I can't wait to get your book. It's supposed to be delivered tomorrow. So I'm going to get that. I'm going to read through it. And what I do when I read a book is I write out my top 10 takeaways from it,
Love it.
and I'm going to put it on LinkedIn, and I'll tag you on it when I do that so people can
Oh,
see it,
awesome.
you
Well,
know, and
I'm on the edge of my seat. I can't wait to
yeah.
see what your takeaways were.
Oh, it's going to be great. How many pages is it?
Oh man, I think it's I want to say 240.
Okay, so that's a solid 2 weekends for me,
Oh, awesome.
and so if I can bang it out in 2 weekends, I'm going to Florida tomorrow, but I wish I had it with me, but I won't have it in time. But
Well, I can't wait to get your feedback. I really
yeah,
appreciate you supporting it. And I appreciate you having me on the show. This has been awesome. Love having these conversations, Jeff.
yeah, I could do this every day. And Bill, thanks again. I appreciate it. And how I always end my show with everybody and tell everybody is just stay strong.
Love it.